So after learning about how dominant Yugoslavia was way back in the day before they dissolved some many years ago, I decided maybe I should take a little bit more time and learn about Yugoslavian football. So today we're going to take a look at the rise and fall of Yugoslav club football.
They could have filled this stadium 3 times over. No Yugoslavian side has ever won the Champions Cup, but you won't convince anyone of this crowd in Belgrade tonight the Red Star are not on their way to the final this year and that they'll be successful. The atmosphere is fantastic.
Jesus, it's just all fire.
Before the wars, before the breakup, and before politics tore it apart, Yugoslavia had one of the most competitive and passionate football leagues in Europe.
Jesus.
A league that produced legends, shocked European giants, and even crowned that team as champions of the world. But how good was the Yugoslavian First League really?
Oh, so FIFA
This
World
is the
Champions?
story of Yugoslavian club football, its rise, its dominance.
I'm sorry, I wanted to see, was that the... Wait, what trophies are these?
But how good was the Yugoslavian First League really? This is the story of Yugoslavian club football, its rise, its dominance, and its tragic ending.
How big were they?
The
How
year
good
is
were they?
1918, World War I has just ended, and across Europe, borders are being redrawn. In the Balkans, a brand new nation is born, the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes, later known as Yugoslavia. With a new country came a new identity, and for many, football was a key part of it.
That makes
Clubs
sense.
had already existed in that region, but now, for the first time, there was a chance to unify them under one national competition. In 1923, the very first Yugoslav national championship was organized. However, it wasn't played in a league format. It was a knockout competition, with the winners of regional leagues facing off to determine the best team in the country. The first title was won by Gradański Zagreb. Familiar badge, right? Well,
Really quick, why is the I'm just curious, why is the table format so much more popular versus like the knockout like format, you know? Because when I did first start watching football, it really did catch me off guard for the very first time when I learned that there wasn't a like knockout stage or anything like it. It caught me completely off guard when I watched my very first like full season of La Liga and discovered that they just win based off of like points on the table. Same with like the Premier League. Actually, the Premier League was where I first learned that. Why is that format so popular? I don't hate it. I'm just curious.
grip. Familiar badge, right? Well, more on that later. The league was dominated by teams from Serbia and Croatia up until 1941, when it was suspended due to World War II. With the formation of Socialist Yugoslavia after World War II, many pre-war clubs were dissolved or restructured and new clubs were founded. In Yugoslav football, 4 clubs stood above the rest. More than just teams, they were symbols of history, politics and national identity. Red Star Belgrade, Partizan Belgrade, Dinamo Zagreb and Hajduk Split, the so-called Big Four. Hajduk Split, the oldest of the Big Four, was founded in 1911 by a group of students returning from Prague. Inspired by Slavia Prague, they wanted to bring organized football to Split. From the very start, Hajduk was a club of the people, deeply tied to Croatian identity and fiercely proud of its independence. In 1945, with Yugoslavia emerging from war, a new football powerhouse was born, Red Star Belgrade. Created by young communist partisans, Red Star quickly became the most dominant club in the country. Backed by the government and the Yugoslav People's Army, it represented the new socialist state. But despite its close tie to the establishment, Red Star was never just a government club. It was the pride of Serbia and one of the fiercest competitors in European football. Red Star wasn't the only club born in the ashes of World War II. In 1945, the Yugoslav army created its own team, Partizan Belgrade. Modeled after clubs like CSKA Moscow, Partizan was the official military team, giving it strong backing but also a fierce rivalry with Red Star.
So all of these clubs had some kind of tie in a way to all of their different countries. Outside of it just being for like the people, you got clubs tied to the government, clubs tied to the military. That's actually really interesting. This is the first time I've really seen a region have so many different clubs for like a variety of different audiences, if we're going to commercialize the term, or the statement. But yeah, they have a variety of different audiences and supporter groups. That's interesting.
Over the years, Partizan became known for its attacking football and excellent youth academy, producing some of the best talents in Yugoslav and world football. When Yugoslavia was restructured after the war, the new regime dissolved Gradański Zagreb, one of Croatia's biggest clubs. In its place, Dinamo Zagreb was born. Though officially a Yugoslav club, Dinamo quickly became the heartbeat of Croatian football and a symbol of national pride. By the year 1966, Hajduk Split had 3 titles, Dinamo Zagreb had 3 titles, Partizan had 6, and Red Star had 7. That same year, Partizan reached the European Cup final. But before we speak about the final, let's talk about the years prior to that and how they got there. After being disappointed only winning 2 titles in 15 years, in 1958 the club left way behind 13 years of playing in blue and red kits and adopted the now famous black and white colours. The change in the club's image and appearance was followed by radical changes in the playing squad. The number of young players coming from Partizan's youth ranks, known as the Partizan's babies, soon emerged into one of the best generations Eastern Europe has ever seen. The 1965-66 European Cup campaign was the crown of this generation's career. On the way to the final, they beat Manchester United with George Best and Bobby Charlton in the squad. In the final, they narrowly lost to Real Madrid 2-1. 1965-66 season is also known for something else in Yugoslavian football. At the beginning of the season, an investigation by the Yugoslav Football Federation revealed that multiple matches had been rigged 2 years before, with clubs allegedly negotiating results to help each other avoid relegation or secure better placements in European competitions. Hajduk Split was one of the teams that was found guilty. Fines were issued and lifelong bans were handed out to the presidents and board members of the clubs involved. Wow. The teams were supposed to be relegated to the 2nd division, however after appeals their punishment was reduced to a points deduction. NK
so how did the players get away with it?
Were relegated, but the other 2 teams managed to survive. 1965-66 season was an eventful season for Yugoslavian football, as Vojvodina made history by becoming the first team outside of the Big Four to win the post-war Yugoslav League. A year later, we had another surprise with FK Sarajevo winning the league and becoming the first Bosnian team to achieve this.
So, do you think they would have ever do you think these clubs would have ever achieved this had the others not been found for match fixing? Hypothetically speaking, say if those clubs never did do any form of match fixing, but instead they just had a really bad season per se. I don't know a way to word this. Yeah, let's say they didn't reduce them by any points at all. Do you think any of these clubs still would have been able to win this championship? Because I feel like that probably had a big play on the overall outcome.
The 70s saw a resurgence of Hajduk Split as the Croatian side managed to win their first title in 16 years, when they won it in 1971. They added 3 more titles in the 70s and performed well in Europe, reaching the semi-final of UEFA Cup Winners' Cup and a quarterfinals of European Cup. Partizan and Red Star continued being strong in the league, winning 2 titles each. Dinamo Zagreb struggled to keep up with the Belgrade clubs, as at this point their last title was in 1958. Yugoslavia has spent majority of its time around the 10th place in the UEFA coefficient rankings, but in 1983 they achieved their highest position ever as they were in 4th place. 1980s saw another controversy in Yugoslavia, as in 1987 Vardar Skopje won the league, becoming the first Macedonian team to do so. They had a whole celebration, everyone was happy, except they are not officially champions. It all started the season before in 1985-86. Partizan won the championship in the last round due to better goal difference than Red Star. However, after weeks of public pressure and huge public outcry, on the 20th of June 1986, the Yugoslav FA decided to impose extraordinary measures that included the following: voiding the already played last game week of the season and ordering a replay of that match week, as well as docking 6 points from each of the 12 clubs suspected of being involved in match fixing.
Damn,
meaning
all
they
12.
would start the following season with -6 points. Each club agreed to play the replay except for Partizan. As a result, their week 34 fixture was registered as a 3-0 defeat, and the club was thus stripped of the league title, which was now awarded to Red Star. What followed on domestic front was a series of appeals and lawsuits. By the time of the final ruling, the next season has already finished, with Vardar Skopje winning the title, mainly due to 12 teams having points deducted. But the court's ruling was that there was no evidence of wrongdoing in the week 34 of the 1985-86 season. Therefore, firstly, Partizan got their title back for the 85-86 season, and it also means there was no merit to deduct points. Therefore, after adding back the removed points, Vardar fell to 5th place, and funnily enough, it was Partizan that ended up becoming the champions again. In the early 1990s.
Wait, what? So, was it ever discovered if it was actually true or not? Because we've seen before that the court rulings necessarily doesn't mean that it never happened. Was this actually legit? That's actually insane. Imagine you think you're doing so good. You're like, yeah, we're above everybody. Oh, they actually didn't do anything wrong. So here's the actual title. It's going to them. I would be livid. I'd be like, what the hell? What do you mean?
Yugoslavian football was getting better and better. The league was one of the strongest in Europe, producing world-class players such as Darko Pancev and Dejan Savicevic, who both finished second in 1991 Ballon d'Or rankings. Or Robert Prosenicki and Predrag Mijatovic, who both ended up playing for Real Madrid, with the latter finishing second in the 1997 Ballon d'Or ranking. In 1991, Red Star Belgrade achieved the greatest success in Yugoslav club history, winning the European Cup. It was a moment of pure footballing glory. A Yugoslavian team had conquered Europe and later on the world as they won the Club World Cup.
Wait, okay, I read a little bit about how the Club World Cup has been structured. Honestly, I thought the Club World Cup was more of a recent thing, is why people were pissed about it. So wait, why were people so upset with the Club World Cup this year if it's been a thing? Because I know Messi has a win in the Club World Cup. Why is it such a problem, or why was it such a problem this year? Was it the timing, like the summer? Because that's usually the time where most teams outside of the US, because the MLS season runs differently. Well, it's changing eventually, but is that because the summer is usually when most teams and players take a breather, they relax, they, avoid injury for those months? And I'm going to assume probably because it was in the US that people just weren't fond of their favorite international teams or their favorite teams not being in their countries or within distance of them. Word spaghetti. Why were people so upset with the Club World Cup this year, knowing that it's always been a consistent thing throughout the years? Not saying that they didn't have the right to feel weird about it. I'm just genuinely curious, what's the consensus on that?
But even as Red Star stood on top of the world, their home country was on the brink of collapse. For decades, football in Yugoslavia had reflected the country's diversity. Serbian, Croatian, Bosnian, Slovenian, Macedonian and Montenegrin players played side by side, and rivalries were fierce but mostly stayed on the pitch. But as nationalist tensions escalated, football, like everything else, became politicized. One of the most symbolic moments came in May 1990. Dinamo Zagreb and Red Star Belgrade, two of the biggest clubs in Yugoslavia, were about to play at Maksimir Stadium, but instead of a football match, the game turned into a battlefield. Clashes between Red Star's ultras and Dinamo's bad blue boys escalated into full-scale riots with police intervention and political undertones. As the war loomed, unity within the league started to fall apart. Croatian and Slovenian clubs left the Yugoslav First League in 1991, forming their own competitions. By 1992, The league was barely recognizable, as Bosnia also moved towards independence. The proud competitive Yugoslavian league was crumbling. By the time the 1991-92 season ended, Yugoslavia as a unified country no longer existed. The breakup of Yugoslavia didn't just end a league, it ended an era. The clubs continued, but the legendary rivalries, the packed stadiums, and the combined footballing talent of an entire region were lost. In terms of success, this is how the final standings looked. Serbian teams dominated the league, with Red Star winning 19 titles and Partizan winning 11. They were followed by the Croatian teams, Hajduk split with 9, and Dinamo Zagreb with 4 titles. Vojvodina, another Serbian team, also won it 2 times, and surprisingly, Bosnia was the third best nation in Yugoslavian league with 3 titles and 2 different winners. What about the 3 other nations, you ask? While Slovenia, Macedonia and Montenegro never produced a Yugoslav first league champion, they still played a role in the league's history. Slovenian clubs like Olimpija Ljubljana were competitive but often mid-table teams, with their best finish being 7th place in 1970. Macedonia's most notable club was Vardar Skopje, which had a strong fan base and even won the 1986 league title, only to have it revoked. Vardar remained a tough opponent, especially at home, and won the Yugoslav Cup in 1961. Montenegro, despite its small size, contributed to the league, most notably with Budućnost, that spent 22 years in the first league, although never challenged for the title.
Damn. So, alright, it looks like this is probably over. My next question is, since Yugoslavia broke up into smaller individual countries, do most of these... Well, actually, wait, no, this says right here, the worst football league in Europe. I'm going to assume this is modern, maybe? Do most of these clubs still exist just within their respective countries, like Serbia, Croatia, and so forth? Do they still exist within those regions? I'm going to assume so, because they all just left. The entire, like, all those countries didn't cease to exist. They just stopped ceasing as a, a unified state, basically. But I'm curious, let me know in the comments, because this is interesting. It's so crazy to me how political football can get, how the fate of this game can also be purely decided by the country, pitches turn into battlefields. Yet over here in the US, everybody's terrified of any form of genuine political discussion at any sporting event. I think that's what I really love about football. It's raw, it's authentic, it's human, and there's just so much lifeblood like pushed into this sport as a whole. Seeing countries fall apart while there are football matches turning into battlefields. I've said this before, this is arguably the most dramatic sport I've ever watched in my life, and I love every second of it. Fun, cool video, man. I love learning things about football. So hey, thanks for watching this reaction. Make sure to go check out the original video, which I'll leave in the description down below. Be sure to leave a like and sub to the channel if you want to see more football reactions. I do a mix of documentaries, highlights, historical pieces, and more on the historical and documentary side, just so I can learn more. But periodically we do some highlights. So hey, thanks for watching. This has been your boy Jay with another reaction to football content. I hope you have a great day. Peace. I forgot to do my hand sign. Peace.